The DA will today deliver its alternative State of the Nation address, with party leader John Steenhuisen taking the podium to present their perspective. Let's take you live there now.
Waiting could truly claim to be serious without a plan, without a blueprint. And that is why today is so radically different from the DA's previous pre-SONA events that many of you would have attended in previous years. Because I'm not here today to tell you about the state of South Africa. I think we all know the dire state that our country is in. I'm also not here to tell you what Cyril Ramaphosa is going to say at SONA, because frankly it's irrelevant. We all know that he will only deflect, distract, and make empty promises that he cannot deliver on. What I am here today to do is to tell you about the DA's blueprint to rescue South Africa. And the truth is that never before has South Africa needed this blueprint than it does today. Just this past week, we saw yet another example about how President Ramaphosa is willing to put cadres before country. The President has now publicly told us that he refuses to act against the Deputy President that he appointed, despite alarming evidence which seems to point to systemic corruption and state capture perpetrated by his deputy, Paul Mashatile. And I want to emphasize an important point. The position of Deputy President is a political appointment. And that political appointment is made solely at the discretion of President Ramaphosa. It is therefore, frankly, another cowardly excuse for him to cower away and say that he needs the South African Police Service to tell him what to do. I've read the Constitution. The South African Police Service does not appoint or disappoint deputy presidents. The President of the Republic appoints and disappoints deputy presidents. Thabo Mbeki, you may recall, removed President or Deputy President Jacob Zuma on the basis of the very serious allegations that emerged around the Shabir Sheikh matter. It seems that Cyril Ramaphosa simply lacks the courage to do the same with his Deputy President. And the best part is he can no longer claim that he didn't know, that he is shocked, that this is the first he's heard about it, because the DA provided him with a full rundown of the allegations made against Paul Mashatile last week. Just yesterday, Netwerk 24 reported that Mashatile's sons were awarded 3 tenders by the Gauteng Infrastructure Department. That isn't something that has happened in the past or a long time ago. Those 3 tenders run up until 2025. Which means that as we sit in this room today, money is being funneled, public money is being funneled to the Mashatiles. It is simply untenable that the President is allowed to simply turn a blind eye to grand corruption happening in the office across the hall from him in the union buildings. Every single day that Paul Mashatile remains in office, that he is so patently unfit for, it is directly attributable to no one other than Cyril Ramaphosa. And frankly, it makes a complete sad joke of his repeated commitments to fighting corruption when it's happening under his nose in the union buildings. But I do want to pause here to acknowledge the incredible work of the brave journalists at News 24 and Netwerk 24, who put together so many pieces of this corruption puzzle. Can you just imagine what an outrage it would have been if the work of Woodward and Bernstein in the Watergate matter had simply been ignored or brushed away? So why should it be any different when it comes to the work of Cowan, Karim, and Wessels on their project of Mashatile Unmasked? And that is why the DA is not going to rest until Mashatile is held accountable and we look forward to announcing some further action in this regard in the coming days. But what this whole sordid affair confirms is that the DA's task after the election is simply this: to fix what the ANC has broken. Now, on the 17th of February, we will be launching our manifesto at the Union Buildings in Pretoria. And that entire manifesto is centered and anchored in one critical fact. And that is that the road to rescuing and reforming South Africa runs straight through Parliament. Because beyond the corruption, the mismanagement, and the economic decline, a defining feature of the Ramaphosa administration is that the outgoing president never grasped the importance of Parliament. He seemed to be under the impression that by simply saying something, it would magically happen. Saying there should be bullet trains doesn't make it magically so. Saying load shedding must end doesn't magically make it so. Only the hard work, the hard yards, and the efforts of real legislative reform can make change possible. With this in mind, and given my many years of experience on the parliamentary benches, I'm proud to share with you today the blueprint for the DA's first 100 days in national government. This blueprint, we believe, will amount to the single most comprehensive legislative agenda of reform since 1994. Within the first 100 days of office, the DA will introduce legislation, not words, not promises, not dreams, legislation aimed at rescuing our country from the 5 key sources of state collapse. These reforms will be focused, like a laser beam, on the 5 following priority areas. 1, fixing the institution of Parliament itself in order to turn it into an engine room of reconstruction and reform. 2, ending load shedding by embracing privatization. 3, abolishing cadre deployment in favor of merit-based appointments and building a capable state. 4th, halving the rate of violent crime, including murder, attempted murder, and gender-based violence. And 5thly, growing the economy while protecting social grants. Out of all of the parties represented in Parliament, the DA is probably the one with the biggest respect and understanding and appreciation for the true role of Parliament. Many of us have spent our lives on those benches. And frankly, it is heartbreaking to witness what has come of this once proud institution and to see what it has been reduced to over the last few decades. The house from which history was made when F.W. de Klerk announced the end of apartheid. The house from which Nelson Mandela outlined a new vision for our country now lies burnt and in ashes. So in addition to prioritizing the physical reconstruction of Parliament, so that all South Africans can again be proud of their house, the DA last year published a comprehensive set of plans to make Parliament work for the people again. Over the last 2 decades, Parliament has been juniorized and defenestrated to the point now where it cannot even perform the basic functions that are laid out in the Constitution for it to perform. Every year, legislative output withers and dwindles away to the point where this last year was the lowest output of any legislation in any Parliament before it. We're going to do this by creating a committee to oversee the presidency, given the fact that so much power has been accommodated in that particular office, increasing the frequency of presidential questions, and introducing penalties, financial penalties, when members of the executive fail to perform their parliamentary functions and fail to pitch up to answer questions. Based on the model that we currently use within the Western Cape Legislature, We will reintroduce interpellations, which are snap debates and a great way of making sure that ministers are on top of their portfolios and are accountable. Finally, even with the DA in government, we will empower opposition MPs to serve as committee chairs. We want the best chairs to be selected to lead committees in Parliament. We do all of this because we are serious about oversight and accountability. The DA will take all of these steps within the first 100 days in government because they will give, finally, expression to the recommendations of the Zondo Commission, for which we spent a great deal of money, expended a great deal of time, but sadly which those recommendations of Judge Zondo lie gathering dust in a drawer in the Union buildings.
All right, let's come out of that briefing. Of course, that is the DA's John Steenhuisen delivering its alternative State of the Nation address, or what it calls its blueprint, and how it will rescue South Africa.